Yo, what's going on, guys? It's G Miners here, and next week we are going to be getting Grandmaster Nightfalls and kicking things off with the Glass Way, which is Void Burn and has a ton of Overload champions, along with super tanky Wyverns and a pretty intense boss room fight as well. The rest of the lineup this season also features a bunch of Overloads and some Void Shields throughout. So in this video, I wanted to go over one of my personal favorite Void builds for GMs, and with some updated exotics this season, this build is going to be stronger than ever before. We are going to be heavily relying on Monarque to be taking out champs, along with some beefed up vortex grenades that apply weaken, last longer, deal increased damage, proc devour, make elemental wells for our build, and then also pair with our exotic armor to give increased energy back. New to Monarque this season, we also have intrinsic overload rounds, so no matter what champion mods are available in later seasons, this build will always work. And then on top of that, the tick damage that Monarque deals will constantly do two things for us. First up, as you'll see, we're going to be getting a pretty decent amount of super energy back when using this against champs, which means we can use our super much more often to take out champs and bosses. And then we are also going to constantly apply overload rounds to overload champions. If you aren't aware, overloads will rapidly heal if you don't hit them with an overload round every few seconds. This is going to be why they are unstunnable and is the only way to prevent them from healing during this time. It ends up being super annoying to take out overloads because if you ever do miss a shot, they're going to get their health back. So Monarque dealing tick damage means you only need to shoot once or twice during this downtime, and because of the tick reapplying, overloads will never heal. And then on top of this, if they are stunnable again and they do take damage from the tick, they will also insta-stun. This made it super easy for me to solo the Master Lost Sector and the Master Nightfall this week, and it will make it so much easier dealing with overloads this season. Now that you guys have seen just a glimpse of what this build can do, let's take a look at the Void subclass layout that's making this all possible. Personally, I tend to run Vortex Nova Bomb, which you are going to see in most of the background gameplay, but I honestly think that Cataclysmic is better for taking out champs. Healing Rift is going to be great for the build. Empowering would help with damage, but there are going to be a lot of cases where Devour runs out because we are just pelting at champs, so having this as a backup way to heal when modifiers like Attrition are on is amazing. And then lastly, you do need to make sure that you are running Vortex Grenades with this build. These are what 90% of the build is based around, including Contraverse holds, which we are using, and some of our aspects and fragments too. For our first aspect, we are going to be on Feed the Void. Now, anytime we get an ability kill, we are going to trigger Devour. This is going to be perfect because our grenades will be able to proc Devour for us, along with our super and melees, and then we can play a bit more aggressive during ad clear phases because we're getting full health back on kill. This will also give us around 25% grenade energy back per kill, so when we combine this with Contraverse, grenades are going to come back super quickly. After this, we are on Chaos Accelerant. This enhances most of the Void grenades, so for us, we are going to benefit off of the ability to have increased AoE and duration for our Vortex nade. This does require us to charge the grenade itself, but increased duration also means that Contraverse will have more opportunities to return energy, which I will go over later. For our fragments, first up is going to be Echo of Remnants. This adds 2 seconds onto the duration of lingering grenade effects. Chaos Accelerant also increases duration by around 25%, so these are going to be very substantial increases, meaning we apply weaken to more enemies, we deal more damage, and potentially get more kills with Devour for further grenade regen as well. Echo of Undermining is going to give our grenades the ability to weaken enemies, so this means we are dealing 15% increased damage whenever we apply this to an enemy, and that also counts for our whole team. For taking out champs, you can toss one of these down, get off a stun, and then put in work as the grenade applies a debuff and does a good amount of damage on its own. And then finally, I personally am rocking Echo of Persistence. This allows Devour to last longer, so at a full duration, we're going to get 15 seconds rather than the base 10. Sometimes I find that 10 seconds is just too short, so this extra time helps us maintain the buff. But if you did want to chunk enemies harder, I do think that Echo of Instability would also work really well with this build. This gives volatile rounds on grenade kills to void weapons, so this would have an amazing synergy. Looking over at Contraverse holds, anytime we use a charged grenade, we're going to get energy back on hit. This does have an internal cooldown of 4 seconds between hits and when they can apply this increased regen, and then the regen that we're getting is going to be 2000% additional base grenade regen for 1.75 seconds. This should be about half the energy we need overall, so if we manage to get this to proc twice, we are going to get our full grenade back, or if we can get enough kills with it, since this will proc Devour, we will get some energy back through those kills as well. Monarque, as I mentioned, is the other exotic used in this build. Arrows we fire shortly after fully drawing the bow are going to become poison arrows. When you hit an enemy with this, it is going to tick for a total of 8 times for some pretty solid damage. This can typically one-shot trash ads even without headshots, depending on your power and the activity you're doing. And if you do manage to get a headshot with the poison arrow, this will spread poison to nearby enemies as well. So think of this like a void version of Incandescent or Firefly. As I mentioned, this does have intrinsic overload rounds, so this will work with direct hits, the poison damage, or even the spread of poison to overloads. This makes it super easy to hit an overload after it comes out of a stun, and then just wait for the tick damage to stun it again, while also preventing it healing. Or you could just focus on killing trash ads, and then let the poison spread to overloads for a stun too. Lastly, with the Catalyst, we are going to get a pretty substantial increase to reload speed, and we get Unrelenting. So if Devour is ever not up, and we manage to get a bunch of kills, this should also do a pretty decent job at keeping us alive. I say this a bunch, but I personally don't see mods as very viable options for GMs and other endgame activities, but I am running a few to get some bonus damage on Monarque. First up is Elemental Ordnance. This spawns in elemental wells that match our subclass type when we get grenade kills, so for us that is going to be Void Elemental Wells. Seeking Wells is going to allow these to travel from where they spawn to me, as long as I am within the range and as long as they don't get stuck on objects. Not a huge fan of this mod overall, but considering you do get one shot in GMs, this prevents the need to run up and grab Elemental Wells off the ground. And then I also am running Font of Might. This increases weapon damage for weapons that match my subclass type if I grab an elemental well that also matches my subclass type. So being on Void and grabbing a Void elemental well gives me a 25% damage increase for all Void weapons. This is going to be clutch for taking out champs with just our primary. Hands down, this is one of my favorite builds for GMs and whenever I go against champions. I will say that the build can play somewhat slow, especially when doing solo content, but in general, that's the way most teams tackle nightfalls. Definitely super casual to use because you can just sit back and hammer champs and ads, and then also use grenade to weaken for your team, and then proc things like Devour if you do want to play more aggressive. Let me know your thoughts on the build in the comments below, along with some of your other favorite GM builds for this season. And also make sure to drop by my Twitch while we are running some low mans and speedruns if you guys want to hang out. Feel free to also join the Discord if you guys want to see some other builds I've put together and ask any questions there. As always, have a good one, guys. Peace.